Hey everyone, and welcome back to A Marriage is Hard But Worth It, where we talk about faith, marriage, and all things that come with trying to do life together God's way. I'm Kaylyn.
And I'm Steve. We're glad you're here with us this week. Today's topic's going to step on a few toes, including ours.
Oh yeah. Um, Ours have been stepped on many times with this one. I mean, we're going to talk about marriage isn't about who's right, but who's willing to grow.
Yeah, because if you've ever been in a marriage for, say, longer than a week, you probably realize being right doesn't always fix anything.
No. And I used to explain, like, if I could just explain to you what's going on, you know, then eventually you'll see that I'm right and
Yeah,
you're
yeah. Well, I mean, I do remember there have been several ways you've tried to explain it, including PowerPoints. I am right, and these are the reasons why. A presentation by Kaylyn.
wrong. Hey now. I've not done PowerPoints. I've just come home with things. Like the dogs. Which, speaking of, it's just Squirt and Charmander's rolling around here on the floor somewhere. Because if we leave them outside, you're going to hear them whining this entire podcast. So,
Yeah.
Here they are.
Yep. I mean, she comes with evidence, but meanwhile, I'm over here trying to build my own argument like I'm a defense lawyer. But here's the truth: only one person wins the argument, and all in all, the marriage loses.
That's right. I mean, Ephesians 2, Ephesians 4, 2 through 3 says, with all humility and gentleness, with patience bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. Which means when we're trying to win, we stop being on the same team. And the whole purpose of your marriage is to be one team.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to say, well, I'm right, or you think you're right, neither one of us want to stop and listen, then it becomes me versus you, and that doesn't solve anything.
And exactly, I mean, you can be right about all your facts, but wrong in your attitude. And we've both done that so many times, it's kind of hard to count them now.
Wait, me attitude? Never.
What? I have an attitude problem? No.
I mean, we may or may not have gathered that from our mothers, but that's neither here nor there. I love you, Mom. Both of y'all.
Well, and the other funny part is it took us very long to understand that we both match energies. So if we're getting a tude, we're receiving a tude.
Tude. Could it be like, stop having an attitude? I don't have an attitude. Are you sure about that one? Like,
I wouldn't have an attitude if you didn't bring me an attitude.
But I didn't have one to begin with. Like, that's just how it goes sometimes when we're arguing. So, while we joke about it, I mean,
it's something that people struggle with, and we're not exempt from that.
And I mean, I know we've told people we don't argue, which we don't really argue. We
have disagreements.
Yeah, like we don't. I think in the 9 years we've been married and the 10 years we've been together, we've had 2 major fights, but we've had several. I know I'm right and he knows he's right, but neither one of us want to shut up and listen.
Right.
So,
I mean, we've had to explain that to the kids before. They're like, you always argue. No, we don't argue. We just talk very loudly.
And that's our other problem is, and I know we're not the only ones that have this issue where, we are so passionate about what we're talking about and thinking that we're right and the other one's wrong that we get a little loud.
And a lot of times we get so into the I'm right and I have to be 100% right that there are many factors and many circumstances where I could be 50% right, she could be 50% right, or she could be 40% right, me 60% right. There's no 100% right, 100% wrong.
No, but we're so passionate about what we're disagreeing on that we don't care what the other one says, and that's not how you grow. And so, with that being said, what does it mean to grow instead of just being right? growth is more about, I care about, let's come to a solution, or let's figure this out, instead of always winning all the time.
Right.
Not that winning is wrong.
Agreement and compromise. This should
Correct.
be the ultimate goal for growth.
Correct. And
But I mean, James 1:19, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. That verse sounds easy until you're in the middle of an argument with your spouse, and she says something that she or he, excuse me, says something you totally disagree with.
and we've definitely been there before. I mean, I think one of our very first fights was back when we first got together, and this was one of our first major fights that we had, was when one of my girlfriends texted me 911, and in our code, 911 with her meant come get my kids
Before
CPS comes and gets them. And that was big for me because those were my babies. Like, I was there when they were born. I helped raise them for the first 3 and 4 years of their lives. Like, I had custody of them. And so when she texted me 911, I was ready to jump in the Dodge and go get those kids. And I didn't think about.
I was gonna say, what you didn't think about was we were struggling in a 2-bedroom apartment.
We had two kids
sharing 1 bedroom already, and you're running to go bring 3 more into the situation.
2, but that's neither here nor there. Those were my babies, and I didn't think about it. And so we yelled at each other, and I was like, I was thinking emotionally where he was thinking logically, and that's where we balance each other out. I'm the emotional one. Imagine that one. But all I saw was 911, and I knew what that code meant for me and her, and nothing else mattered at that moment.
Until you got a second text back that said 911. This time meant, can you order us pizza?
Yeah. And I called her so quickly, and I was like, don't ever text 911 again, because that means for me to come get the kids. But like I said, in that moment, I was right in what I was going to do, because he didn't know what that text message meant. I knew what it meant, and he was right because he was like, we can't do this. He was working at General Motors, and
we had no space. We were barely getting by financially without having to bring in the burden of 2 extra mouths to feed, and a place for 2 extra humans to sleep in a 2-bedroom apartment. The math does not math.
And once I settled down from the emotion, and she texted back talking about this is what the 911 really meant, then the emotional side of me went down, and we had a conversation, and I had to realize that we weren't married yet. We were still dating. But I had to realize that it wasn't just me anymore. Like, it wasn't just, I can go rescue these kids and it's fine. Like, I have a boyfriend at the time and his 2 kids to think about. Even with only having them 50% of the time, we still didn't have room to have. Right. And
2 I had kids 100% of the time.
And that's where, our brain stops listening and we start loading into our next comeback. And that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Thanks, Mom. So growth means, taking that deep breath and listening. And
letting God check your heart before you respond.
And not just hearing, but actually listening. And that, that's been another thing that we've struggled with, is when we get to a point where, we have family meetings with his kids and his ex-wife to kind of check and see where everybody's at. And
I like to kind of call it the State of the Union.
Yeah, that too. And we do this, I don't know, every couple of months, just to kind of check and see where everybody's at.
Maybe once a quarter, once a half a year somewhere, just to make sure everybody's on the same.
We're on the same page as parents. We're on the same page. The kids can tell us something's bothering them, because, the kids, one kid comes to me, one kid goes to their grandma. Mom, and one kid goes to Mimi, and we just need to make sure we're all on the same page. And so we've had problems where we hear what one another's saying, but we don't actually listen to what's being said. And so that's where we have room to grow there
I was
too.
saying, then there are certain cases where somebody will test if I'm actually listening, not just hearing, and then they're astonished by the fact of, oh my god, he actually was listening.
I mean, I don't know what he's talking about. I've never done such a thing. No, but he's not wrong. And I know he does it to me too, where he and the kids, we want to make sure that the kids are hearing what we're saying and not just, you know, hearing it just to hear it. We want to make sure that they're doing it, and even though Kelly is still a member of family, we need to make sure that she's listening to what we've got to say too, because
Mm-hmm.
we all three parent differently. You
Right.
know,
But that's another episode for
it is.
another time.
Um,
Co-parenting in a situation like that.
and
We're lucky where we got an easier job, but we will get into it when co-parenting is a
is not,
notorious pain in the ass.
yeah, when you have that toxic significant other. But
I mean, sometimes we forget that God didn't create marriage for us to be happy.
no, that's
He
true.
designed it to make us more holy.
Yeah, and that one stings just a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron. So one person sharpens another. That sharpening process isn't
Isn't
always
always
comfortable.
comfortable. No,
It creates sparks, but those sparks refine us.
and two, God uses marriage for us to grow, um, and to show ourselves that we might not always be uh otherwise notice. That we're letting our pride get in our way, or we're being selfish or impatient.
Maybe even a little sarcastic.
Coming from the one who uses sarcasm on a daily basis.
My sarcasm's so advanced that I have a PhD in sarcasm.
Yeah, and sometimes it gets you in a little too much trouble because you use it at the wrong time.
No, that's our son.
And I wonder where he gets it from.
There are times where my son is even more advanced in sarcasm than I am, and that is a scary thought. I will open my mouth to say something, and I know a smart ass comment is coming before I even finish the sentence. So as soon as I finish the sentence, I'll look at him and go, "Shut up."
and and two, when you're arguing, you know, your tongue is the strongest muscle in your body, both physically, mentally, and even emotionally. When you get into those arguments, sometimes things get heated and you say things that you don't really mean. And
Or
now,
or you say something that can easily be construed as cutting when it wasn't meant
meant
to
to
be
be,
cutting.
because you're using a harsh tone that in your brain you think you're saying something, you know, super light, super like, th- this is what I mean, but it doesn't come across that because the person on the other end doesn't compute it the same way you
Which
do.
I've gotten a lot better at that because I've said something that I know can be construed as cutting or hurtful, and as soon as I say it, I say, "Hey, I did not intend that to be cutting or hurtful. This is what I meant."
And he has to do that because my face just goes like, wait, what did you say? Like, because I come from a relationship prior to him that, I was physically, mentally, emotionally abused, and so he'll say something when we're having a disagreement that he doesn't realize was something that the person before him said that just used to cut me deep. And he's like, hold up, hold up, hold up, before your brain goes left field. This is what
that was not the intention.
and trust me, my brain will go so far left field that I'll be like, are we even still married? Like, what are we doing here?
But yeah, I mean, you got to be aware of what you're saying
And how you're
and
saying.
how you're saying it, and that's, like I said, it is relatively new that I can catch myself and understand what she's thinking when I say something like that. But it's a huge step in progress. Going, oh, this could potentially be a trigger, and it was not meant that way, and let me communicate it that way.
Yeah, and vice versa. There'll be sometimes, like, I'm not saying that he didn't come from relationships that were cutting, and there'll be sometimes I'll say something and he'd be like, "You're sounding just like so
So
and
and so.
so. And that may be the previous relationship to me. That may be the
10 years
relationship,
ago. Or,
even
well, no, now that would be like 20
20 years
years ago.
ago. Yeah.
God, we're getting old.
So practicality and how that you choose the growth in those tough moments. Um,
Biggest thing is pause before you respond. Take a second to breathe. Sometimes silence is the most spiritual thing you can do in a heated moment.
yeah,
Um,
because
a gentle answer turns away wrath. A harsh one stirs up anger.
says Proverbs 15:1, because like we said, you can say something that you don't mean it to be one way, and that's the way that it turns. It you didn't mean for it to come off harsh. You didn't mean for it to come off
Cutting.
but your tone, because you're angry, says it. So it's easier said than done, I promise, because in the heated moment, you're not thinking clearly. So, you know, I advise taking Proverbs 15:1 and shoving that on your refrigerator, your bathroom mirror, whatever, because it's a super important verse. And then, choose curiosity over criticism. And this one's a hard one that we need to start taking into consideration. Well, not just us, but our kids. Because
Yeah, we could be in the middle of a conversation and we understand exactly what we're saying,
mhm,
but in their perspective, it's coming off as something completely different.
correct. And so instead of saying like, why did you do that? Which I have a really big, and that I have that's the first sentence I go to is, why did you do it like that? Because I was raised differently than he was, and we have three different our kids. I they have three different parenting styles that they have to navigate through. I'm the no BS parent. I'm the parent that will go to the school and yell and scream and be heated with the school to get my point across.
I'm the compassionate helper.
And Kelly's the non-confrontational parent, but she will put her foot down. Don't get that twisted. She will put her foot down with the kids, but she's the non-confrontational parent where I'm the confrontational parent. But instead of saying, why did you do it like that? Ask your spouse or your kid, like,
What were you
help
thinking?
me understand what you were thinking.
What were you thinking?
And that'll change the whole thing. And especially with the kids, I'll
Yeah.
go down there. They'll tell me they need something. I'll open the refrigerator, like I did it the other day to Seth on accident. He's like, I need more protein shakes. Okay, I didn't think anything about it, so I go to Costco and grab 3 cases of protein. I open the door, and the kids got all this Premier Protein just chilling there in the refrigerator. I'm like,
But
I
I mean,
called him, and I'm like, you didn't need protein shakes. Like,
well, he needed the Nuri ones.
he wanted a very specific brand. I'm like, well, you need to drink this brand first because you asked for that brand. It's a whole thing.
But I mean, they've settled into a nice understanding of when they do get in trouble how it's going to go, because you tend to be more of the disciplinarian. You'll give them the tough love, and then I'll come in and I'll have the more reasonable conversation, the building conversation of, yes, this happened, yes, you are in trouble, but this is how we're going to work around it and grow from it.
Yeah. And
So
you need to do that same thing in your marriage. Like, this doesn't just apply to your kids, this applies to your marriage too. Like, you have to have those tough conversations with your spouse after the argument is over and be like, okay, this is what I was thinking. Here, help, so that way you can help understand. Because again, a lot of people come from traumatic relationships, whether it's a relationship with a significant other or traumatic relationship with your parents, or whatever the case may be.
and the other thing is don't be afraid to be the first to apologize.
Oof.
Even if you're only 10% wrong, own your 10%.
Yeah.
Because nobody is faultless in an argument.
No. And when you're, and that, again, that's easier said than done. You hate to, that's where your pride gets in the way. Um, of being willing to be the first one to apologize. That pride is, I'm right, he's wrong, or I'm right, she's wrong. I'm not going to apologize because I'm right. And that's not how that works.
Or I'm more right than you are, so I'm not going to
Correct.
apologize.
You have to make that apology. And then stop living by the quote, Lord Jesus, happy wife, happy life. And I'm not saying that your wife doesn't deserve to be happy, but your husband deserves to be happy as well. So instead of happy wife, happy life,
Happy marriage, happy life.
happy spouse, happy house.
I like that one too.
You know, and don't get me wrong, we joke all the time, happy wife, happy life. You know, his friends say it, but that's not how it works. Like, you can't have one spouse.
Yeah, it can't be one-sided.
Yeah, not at all. And no, we joke when yeah, especially with dogs. You know, happy wife, happy life. I got 2 puppies. I want a third one, and the answer is no.
No.
And realistically, do we need a third one? No.
No, the one that's actually off camera getting into stuff right now is more than enough to handle that we don't need a third
one. Because then you got to get a fourth one because they come in pairs, and then it becomes a whole thing. And
then you have a gaggle.
Not that having a gaggle of dachshunds.
I don't need a gaggle of dachshunds.
Yes, we do, but that's neither here nor there. And then next big thing is pray together after that conflict. You know,
and that is 100% easier said than done, especially if the conflict gets heated.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to do is unite in prayer once you've spent the last 30 minutes to an hour red-faced at each other.
Or days mad at each other.
Right.
You know. She's sorry for the extra noise. She's down there getting into what she's not supposed to because she doesn't want to lay down. You know, and it's because when you're in that heated argument, the devil has found his way in. Exactly. You know, Satan has found his way in because, like we said before, Satan hates marriage. He hates that
it's God's strongest unity, and he wants to tear it apart.
So, you know, when you're fighting against each other, Jesus, she's ticklish, by the way. You know, when you're fighting against each other, you're not that team that God created, and that three-chord
covenant
that we were talking about is
last 2 episodes.
It's starting to unravel, and God's trying to pull it back together. So even if the prayer is, you know, 30 seconds long, you know, it doesn't have to be that long, drawn out congregational prayer.
No, it could be as simple as, "Dear God, help us."
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything, you know, extravagant. And that's when you start putting that 3-chord covenant back together and pushing Satan out the door, and it humbles you.
Right.
You know, so
it's hard to stay mad when you're praying with each other.
Correct, because you're asking God to take that anger out of your heart, and you're asking him to help you see the other person's perspective.
Right.
And it could be, you could be arguing as simple as, you did the dishes wrong.
Guilty.
Just a little bit. and I know I've been guilty when I've asked you to clean the house, you know, because he's waiting for this admission. That's him waiting. So I was taught one way how to clean, and I didn't have brothers. I had a dad, but I didn't have brothers, and so, you know, the toilets weren't as horrible when I was a kid, but, you know, would you two stop fighting? We're talking about arguing here. Can you two not argue, please? Thank you. Anyways, I asked him to clean, and when we were first together, if it wasn't to
your standard.
No, not my standards. Your mother-in-law's standards. Let's get this correct here. It's your mother-in-law's standards, because that's where I learned it from.
Get back over here.
I would go behind him and re-clean, and it got to the point where he's like, "What's the point?"
Yep.
It wasn't a verbal argument. It was more of a silent argument of, well, what's the point of me going and doing this
when you're going to spend half the day doing the exact same thing that I just did in a different way?
Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes I'll get into spots that he forgot, and I'll still do it every once in a while, but I won't go back in and redo the entire thing. I'll just go in and...
Right, you've gotten a lot better of going, "Hey, you overlooked this. This is why I'm doing it."
Mm-hmm.
because and again, we're going to share perspective.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I'm like, hey, I took the time to do that. I put everything I had into doing that. And then when somebody comes right behind me and does it over again, that just sends me a signal that I didn't do it good enough and I wasn't good enough to
Mm-hmm.
have it be satisfactory.
And then when you get into that mindset of, well, I'm not good enough, now it spirals into other things of, well, what else in my marriage am I not good enough at?
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes that also stems back to when we were kids. Like, if we did something that wasn't to our parents' standards, then it comes, well, I'm not a good enough kid, or I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
good enough that. And
Stop. You are right next to a microphone, sweetheart. Let's not do that.
she was trying to get comfortable, Daddy. Dang. Um, and so what we kind of want you guys to take away from this is that you don't always have to be right. And I know that's easier said than done because we want to be right. And that's the human in us, is that we want to be right. We always want to be right, and that's you're human. That doesn't always have to happen. You don't always have to be right. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here cuz
Yeah, and
I
again, the 100% right, 100% wrong stifles growth.
it does. And it takes that humility away from your growing, and it makes you more impatient. And when you're not willing to grow and you're always wanting to be right, that's again letting Satan take control, and pushing God away, and not
Mm-hmm.
wanting to reconcile with God. And we had a whole conversation about that. That was our lesson
Our
today at
lesson today at
church.
church was reconciliation.
Um,
But I mean, if you're bullheaded and stubborn and 100, I'm 100% right. Where does the opportunity for grace to come in that situation?
it it doesn't. You don't allow grace to come in, and your spouse isn't your enemy. I promise. Well, sometimes they are, but that's a whole nother topic for later on. But your God doesn't intend for your spouse to be your enemy. He wants it to be your refining partner. Um, and Philippians 1:6 tells us that he who began a good work will carry on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. And that includes your marriage.
Yeah, I mean, he's working on your marriage every day, whether you know it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like we said, for the first 2 episodes, it's a three-chorded covenant. God's in there too, and God does work that you don't even realize He's doing.
Mm-hmm. He sees and hears conversations that you don't. He's, all knowing. There's a reason why he's all knowing, because he's there to protect you. And sometimes that means protecting you from yourself. And so when you feel like you're about to start an argument, or you're in the midst of an argument, like I said, stop, pause, breathe. If you have to take that big breath and ask yourself, am I trying to win this argument, or are
Are
we
we
trying
trying
to
to
grow
grow?
from the situation?
And you choose growth, you both win.
You
It's
do.
not a one person wins, the other loses.
No. It's a win-win situation when you take that moment and you breathe and you take a step back. So, I mean, again, we know that some of these topics are easier said than done, and they're going to take practice, and we're not perfect at them.
Oh God, no.
We're nowhere near are we marriage experts, but it's stuff that we've got to work on in our marriage every day. And we want to, one thing that can help us
Could help
help you guys.
any amount of you guys out
So we
there.
want to thank you guys for hanging out with us
And
today.
that's, I mean, what we are at our core is both is helpers, and
Mm-hmm.
this is why we're here.
Yeah. So, thanks for hanging out with us today, guys. And if this episode has encouraged you, make sure you share it with your spouse or another couple who needs that reminder.
And it's not just married couples. Dating couples could use
Mm-hmm.
this advice as well, because dating is a preparation for marriage.
Yeah. I mean, and we'll get into that subject later, where we need to talk about I kissed dating goodbye. And I know that sounds funny, but there's a reason why you're not supposed to connect yourself with every relationship that you walk into. And we'll go dive deeper into that later. Um, so don't forget to subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, uh,
Facebook, TikTok,
Facebook, TikTok,
Instagram.
Instagram, and there's one other one that we just got onto. Amazon Prime. We're in all those locations. We have our email address. Because we'd love to hear how God's growing in your marriage or
Or if you have a topic you
topic they
want
want
us
us
to
to talk.
discuss,
Yeah. Now,
feel free.
it may be a little bit before we get to that topic because we've got about a good.
Somebody already has about 6 months worth of episodes planned out.
Yeah, well, when you struggle, you struggle. The struggle is real sometimes, guys. But join us next week where we talk about um, how you talk about your spouse to others. And that's a huge, huge one.
Yeah. Because it's not just how you talk to yourselves, it's how you portray your spouse and your covenant to other people.
Correct, because you could say one wrong thing to one wrong person, and they're going to look at your spouse like they're Satan walking on earth. But we will get more into that next week, guys. We will see you next time. Have a good
one.
weekend.